From high above the Mesopotamian plain, Baghdad does not look like a city. It looks like a command carved into the earth. 3 perfectly concentric rings rise out of the flat brown land with such precision that they seem less like walls than the marks of a giant compass pressed into dust. Nearly 2 miles across, the city is not the result of centuries of accident, drift, and improvisation. It is a deliberate act of power. Caliph al-Mansur ordered Baghdad into existence as the new center of the Abbasid world, a capital designed not merely to govern an empire but to embody it. Every line of the city declares intention. 4 monumental gates open toward Basra, Kufa, Syria, and Khorasan, as if the known world itself has been assigned directions and told where to report. Roads, goods, soldiers, merchants and scholars, tax revenue and ideas all move inward. And nothing about this place suggests randomness. Baghdad has been planned as a machine for concentration, drawing the wealth and intelligence of continents toward a single political heart. Now the year is around 820 CE, and under Caliph al-Ma'mun, that heart beats harder than ever. This is not simply the wealthiest city in the Islamic world. It is becoming the most intellectually ambitious city on earth. Behind these circular walls, paper will become more valuable than marble, argument more powerful than steel, and memory more enduring than stone. What stands before you is more than a capital. It is an experiment on a civilizational scale, a city built to gather the world, study it, translate it, and send it back out transformed. At sunrise, the Tigris does not wake gently. It roars. The flat brown water slaps against thick wooden docks while ropes strain, holes groan, and barefoot laborers shout over one another in Arabic, Persian, Greek, and tongues from even farther away. The morning call to prayer spreads across the river like a veil, but it does not quiet the harbor. It only joins the noise. Baghdad begins the day in motion. You stand on the planks among damp wood, river silt, and the sharp smell of cargo just unloaded from distant seas. You are not a merchant returning with silk or spice. You are something far more valuable to this city. A master translator, a mutarjim, newly returned from a dangerous journey into Byzantine territory. Your caravan did not cross hostile frontiers to bring back jewels. It brought back thought. Inside the heavy chests at your feet lie aging manuscripts written on brittle parchment, their edges darkened by damp and neglect. Aristotle, Galen, Ptolemy, works copied, hidden, bartered for, or quietly taken from monasteries and private collections across lands that do not willingly share their treasures. In another port, these would be relics for princes. In Baghdad, they are raw material. Around you, the wider world empties itself into the docks. Porcelain from Tang China glints pale in the morning light. Raw ivory from East Africa lies beside bundled furs carried down from the cold river routes of the Rus. Sailors curse, mules stamp, scribes count, and brokers argue. The empire's wealth is here, but the cargo that matters most will never be sold in the bazaar, because in Baghdad, knowledge is not a luxury. It is policy. You signal for the manuscripts to be loaded onto waiting pack animals. Ahead of you rises the road toward the Khorasan Gate, where the city's geometry begins to close around everything it has pulled in from the world beyond. To enter Baghdad is to move through layers of permission. The Khorasan Gate rises ahead of you like the mouth of a fortress, its heavy archway swallowing men, animals, and cargo into shadow before releasing them into the ordered world inside. Guards from Khorasan stand watch in mail shirts and helmets darkened by heat and oil, curved swords resting close to hand. Nothing enters this city unexamined, not merchants, not messengers, not manuscripts. your animals pass through a deep vaulted tunnel built into the outer wall, and the noise of the harbor drops behind you as if a door has been shut on the wider world. Inside the first ring, Baghdad reveals its outer skin: barracks, storehouses, administrative compounds, stables, and the disciplined movement of soldiers and officials who keep the empire's machinery turning. Even here, the city feels arranged rather than lived in. The streets bend with intention. Space itself seems assigned a rank. You move onward, deeper, through another controlled passage and into the inner precincts where the crowd thins and status rises. Then, at last, the center begins to reveal itself. The great green dome of the caliphal palace lifts above the city like a signal visible for miles across the plain, and beside it stands the congregational mosque, monumental and calm. Palace and mosque, rule and revelation, power and legitimacy bound together in brick and geometry, and yet the place that matters most to your cargo lies just beyond that royal core. It does not glitter, it does not tower. It waits in courtyards and shaded halls near the center of power, close enough to feel the treasury's breath, the house of wisdom. But before knowledge can rule the world, it must first be copied. The Abbasid Golden Age does not begin in a library, it begins in a stench. South of the scholarly courtyards, near the river where barges unload rags instead of manuscripts, the air turns foul enough to sting the eyes. Rotting linen, sour hemp, wet ash, caustic lye. The smell clings to the back of the throat and settles there like punishment. This is the paper district, one of the least glamorous and most important places in the empire. Workers stand knee-deep in stone vats, their tunics soaked, their arms slick with pulp and dirty water. Above them, heavy hammers driven by water power rise and fall with relentless force, pounding old cloth and rope into a fibrous mash. Nothing here feels refined. The floor is slick with slurry. The noise is blunt and mechanical. Hands are cracked, burned, and stained. Yet from this violence comes the material that will change the intellectual balance of the world. The technique itself came eastward, linked to methods long used in China, but in Baghdad it has been turned into industry. Parchment made from animal skin is durable, but it is costly, heavy, and slow to produce. Paper is something else entirely. It is lighter, it is cheaper, it can be made in quantity. Sheets are lifted on screens, pressed flat, dried in the hard Mesopotamian sun, then polished smooth so ink will sit cleanly on the surface instead of bleeding into it. This is what a knowledge empire smells like. Not perfume, not incense. Wet fiber, labor, heat, and chemicals. Baghdad does not merely collect ideas from Greece, Persia, India, and beyond. It gives those ideas a body that can be copied, stacked, carried, and sold. By the time you leave, clean blank pages hang in rows like pale banners. They flutter in the hot air, waiting for physicians, astronomers, mathematicians, and translators to cover them with words. The city's greatest triumph will not be built in stone. It will be multiplied on paper. You expect silence when you enter the House of Wisdom. Instead, you walk into pressure. Courtyards pulse with voices, sandals scrape across brick, and scholars lean over desks as if language itself were a battlefield. This is no monastic refuge of dust and whispers. It is an intellectual foundry funded by the caliph, where the accumulated knowledge of older civilizations is broken apart, examined, argued over, and rebuilt for a new age. Muslims work beside Nestorian Christians, Jews, Persians, and scholars from lands farther east, each bringing a language, a method, or a fragment of a tradition the empire wants to absorb. At one desk, a Greek text is read aloud. At another, the same ideas are rendered into Syriac. Then, almost immediately, a second scholar turns the Syriac into precise Arabic, searching not for decorative wording but for exact meaning. A weak phrase can damage a theorem. A careless verb can distort a medical treatment. Here, translation is not literary ornament, it is technical surgery. You watch one celebrated scholar bend over a manuscript with the concentration of a surgeon. Margins fill with notes, disputed terms, alternate readings, and corrections pulled from other copies. Nothing is trusted merely because it is ancient. Manuscripts are compared, reconciled, and clarified. The goal is not to preserve old knowledge like treasure sealed in a chest. The goal is to make it usable, and the treasury makes sure no one mistakes the stakes. A translated volume in medicine, astronomy, philosophy, or mathematics can be rewarded in gold equal to its weight. You watch officials set a completed book onto a scale and counterbalance it with dinars that flash in the courtyard light. In this city, ideas are not honored with applause. They are purchased, organized, and deployed.
That is what makes Baghdad different. It is not simply saving the ancient world from decay. It is reorganizing the ancient world into a working system. Thought arrives here in scattered languages and leaves in a common intellectual currency. By the time your manuscripts pass from your hands to the translation hall, they no longer feel like private possessions. They feel absorbed into something larger, a machine of paper, patronage, and ambition that intends to know everything worth knowing. Step out of the house of wisdom, and the city continues the lesson for you. Knowledge does not remain trapped in elite courtyards or behind the authority of palace walls. It spills outward into the streets, into trade, into ordinary movement, into the habits of people who may never enter a caliphal debate chamber. Follow the flow far enough, and you arrive at the Suqa Warakin, the market of the stationers, where Baghdad turns learning into urban life. The street is dense with copyists, inksellers, binders, booksellers, teachers and customers running their fingers over stacks of fresh pages. The air is thick with the smell of gallnut ink, leather, dust, glue, and hot food drifting in from nearby vendors. Some shops specialize in poetry, others in law, medicine, astronomy, theology, or grammar. Brass astrolabes hang beside rolled texts. Children weave through the crowd. Buyers argue over prices. A teacher pauses beneath an awning to explain a passage to a small circle of students, while, a few steps away, a scribe bends over a page with the patience of a craftsman carving wood. In much of the contemporary world, a book is a luxury object, something chained to a monastery, hoarded by a noble, or copied so slowly that ownership itself becomes a form of status. Baghdad is different. Here, books circulate. They are bought, copied, discussed, corrected, borrowed, and sold again. Learning is not hidden. It is public, commercial, and alive. That may be the city's most radical achievement. The state gathers knowledge, the scholars refine it, but the city spreads it. Memory leaves the institutions and enters the market, where it becomes part of daily life. And in the shade just ahead, seated on a rug with a wooden board dusted in fine sand, a mathematician is drawing symbols that will travel even farther than books. On a wooden board dusted with fine sand, the future of mathematics appears almost too small to notice. No marble monument marks this moment. No crowd gathers. A scholar sits cross-legged in the shade, stylus in hand, writing symbols into dust and wiping them away again with the side of his palm. To anyone passing, it looks ordinary. To history, it is a turning point. The man belongs to the world of Al-Khwarizmi, one of the brilliant minds working under Abbasid patronage, and the numbers before him carry an inheritance from India
that is far more powerful than it first appears. They include a place value system and, most strangely of all, a symbol for nothing. 0. Not an empty space, but a usable idea, a sign that absence itself can be counted, positioned, and made to work inside calculation. From that abstraction comes a new method. Problems that once required memory, geometry, or intuition can now be arranged step by step. Unknown quantities can be balanced, isolated, and solved. The Arabic term is algebra, the restoration, the rejoining, the act of bringing broken parts into order. On this board, arithmetic is becoming procedure. Thought is becoming method. That matters far beyond the scholar's hand. These symbols will help merchants calculate, astronomers predict, officials tax, surveyors measure, and heirs divide estates with greater precision than older systems easily allowed. What looks like scratching and dust is really a new form of control. Power no longer depends only on swords, walls, or gold. It can live in abstraction. The mathematician smooths the board and begins again. In Baghdad, even erased knowledge leaves a trace. In Baghdad, a hospital is not where knowledge ends in suffering. It is where knowledge begins with the body. Step through the entrance of one of the city's great bimaristans, and the difference is immediate. The corridors are wide, ventilated, and orderly. Light enters through open spaces designed to move air through the building. Patients are not abandoned in a single crowded chamber. They are sorted, observed, and treated according to condition. Because illness here is not chaos, it is something to be studied. These hospitals are supported by charitable endowments, open to the public, and organized with a seriousness that makes them feel closer to institutions of learning than houses of despair. In one ward, eye surgeons perform delicate operations on cataracts with fine instruments and steady hands. In another, physicians consult shelves of compounds prepared in the pharmacy, where the air carries the scent of camphor, myrrh, rosewater, and ground herbs measured with care rather than superstition. Students move beside experienced doctors, listening, watching, and recording what they see. Symptoms are compared, cases are discussed, treatments are adjusted. Observation matters more than inherited fear. Even the care of the mind is approached differently here. In a quieter section of the hospital, those suffering from mental distress are not chained in darkness or condemned as spiritually corrupted. They are placed in calm surroundings with music, water, rest, and deliberate attention meant to restore balance rather than deepen terror. That may be one of Baghdad's most extraordinary achievements. It does not separate compassion from knowledge. It turns compassion into method. The body becomes something that can be studied without losing its humanity, and healing becomes something that can be taught, repeated, improved, and written down. By the time you leave the bimaristan, the brutal heat of the afternoon is beginning to break. Shadows lengthen across the streets. The city cools. But Baghdad is not quieting. It is preparing for another kind of intensity, one that begins after sunset. When darkness falls over Baghdad, the empire's most dangerous battles begin without swords. Oil lamps bloom across courtyards and corridors, casting soft gold over carved wood, polished stone, and thick Persian carpets. The day's furnace heat breaks at last, replaced by a cooler wind that slips through screens and archways from the open night beyond. Inside the Golden Gate Palace, the city's energy has not faded. It has changed form. You are led into the majlis, the caliph's evening salon, where authority gathers not to inspect troops or count taxes, but to test ideas. Servants move quietly between the guests with chilled drinks sweetened and perfumed, while scholars, jurists, theologians, and astronomers settle onto cushions in circles of rank and confidence. At the center sits Caliph al-Ma'mun, not distant, not ceremonial, but alert and deeply engaged. He is not merely funding knowledge, he is participating in it. The arguments begin with theology and quickly widen into philosophy, law, language, and the structure of the universe itself. One scholar defends reason as the clearest path toward divine truth. Another warns that reason, if left unchecked, can turn arrogance into doctrine. A traditionalist presses on revelation. A philosopher pushes back with logic. Then an astronomer presents a calculation about the Earth, and suddenly the room is balancing scripture, geometry, and power in a single breath. Voices rise, interruptions sharpen, weak arguments are exposed without mercy. Al-Ma'mun leans forward, questions assumptions, and presses the speakers harder. Here, intellect is not ornament, it is a weapon, a discipline, and a form of prestige. In this room, reason is not separate from empire, it is one of its tools. By the time the debate loosens and the night deepens, the palace feels less like a residence than the mind of the city itself. You step back, out toward the terraces above Baghdad, where the lamps below shimmer against the dark, and the river cuts silver through the sleeping plain. From the palace terrace, Baghdad looks eternal. The moon lays a long silver path across the Tigris, and the river carries back the broken light of hundreds of lamps burning along quays, courtyards, mosques, workshops, and roofs. Beyond the circular walls, distant caravan fires flicker in the dark, each one waiting to carry books, instruments, medicines, and methods outward into lands that will never see this city at its height. From here, the plan of Baghdad feels flawless. Power at the center, knowledge close beside it, markets and mills feeding both, and the river tying the entire machine to the wider world. It is easy, standing above the sleeping city, to believe that anything built with this much intention must surely endure. But history is already moving toward Baghdad, even now, from beyond the horizon. 4 centuries from this night, horsemen under Hulagu Khan will break the confidence of these walls, tear open the palaces, kill the scholars, and turn the center of the Abbasid world into smoke, rubble, and panic. The House of Wisdom will not be spared. Later accounts will say that so many books were thrown into the Tigris that the water darkened with ink before it ran red with blood. It is one of the most haunting images in history, because it seems to promise not only destruction, but erasure, as if a civilization can be drowned. But that is the final misunderstanding of Baghdad. Its genius was never only in what it possessed, but in what it set in motion. Long before the Mongols arrive, the city has already taught its habits to the world. The manuscripts you watched enter the translation halls do not remain there. They are copied, argued over, corrected, taught, purchased, carried, and recopied again, until their contents no longer belong to a single room, a single patron, or a single city. Mathematics lives in ledgers, observatories, and classrooms. Medicine lives in trained hands, case notes, and habits of observation. Astronomy lives in tables, instruments, and corrected measurements of the sky. Philosophy lives in argument itself, in the belief that revelation and reason can be forced into dialogue rather than sealed apart. Paper is fragile, yes, but that is also its advantage. Stone stays where it is placed. Paper moves. It passes through markets, saddlebags, schools, mosques, hospitals, courts, and ports. It survives because it can scatter. That is why Baghdad will outlive Baghdad. The city will fall as a place, but continue as a method. Its walls protect it for a time. Its institutions strengthen it for a time. Its armies and treasuries sustain it for a time. but the thing that truly survives is less visible. A way of collecting, testing, translating, organizing, and transmitting knowledge so that it no longer dies with the people who first held it. Look down once more at the sleeping roofs, the dim alleys, the markets now quiet, the mills at rest, the hospitals settling into night, and the scholars somewhere below still arguing over words that will travel farther than any army marching under any banner. That is the real monument of this city. Not the symmetry of its walls, not the glitter of its court, not even the fame of its libraries, but the fact that it learned how to turn thought into movement. Paper was fragile. Power was temporary. Memory escaped. Its palaces will burn, its books will scatter, and its people will suffer. But once a civilization teaches the world how to think, no conqueror arrives early enough to stop the lesson. That is why, even after the domes collapse and the courtyards fall silent, Baghdad remains present wherever a doctor records a case, a scholar compares a text, a navigator trusts a table, or a student solves for the unknown. The city does not survive because its walls were strong. It survives because its knowledge learned to travel through human hands.